I am Elisa, 38 years old, and for 15 years, I was the invisible chef behind every family holiday. Thanksgiving turkeys, Christmas hams, birthday cakes, you name it. I spent thousands of hours cooking while my family created memories without me. Not a single holiday photo included my face, just empty chairs where I should have been. Last year, something inside me finally snapped. Now, as I sit on this Mexican beach on Christmas Day with my phone turned off, I can almost hear the panic back home as they stare at a frozen turkey. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you've ever felt taken for granted, hit that like button and subscribe as I share how I finally found my place at the table. Growing up as the oldest child in my family came with expectations that seemed harmless at first. I was the responsible one, the one who always had everything under control. Born and raised in Connecticut, I chose to attend college just 30 minutes from home, majoring in graphic design, but found unexpected joy in a culinary arts elective I took to fill my schedule. My family has always been what you might call traditionally dysfunctional. My father, Gerald, is a quiet accountant who retreats behind his newspaper when emotions run high. My mother, Martha, tries her best, but cooking was never her strong suit. Growing up, our meals were either burnt, bland, or straight from the freezer section. My sister Jane, 4 years younger than me and the beauty of the family, was always the star athlete and social butterfly. She now works in public relations, a job that seems to consist mostly of elegant lunches and cocktail parties, according to her Instagram. Then there is my brother Patrick, 8 years my junior, the baby of the family, who somehow never outgrew being treated like one. He works in tech, makes twice my salary, but still brings his laundry to Mom when he visits. Hovering over all of us is my grandmother, Evelyn, a woman who believes a woman's worth is measured by her ability to manage a household. She lives just 15 minutes from my parents and has Sunday dinner with them every week without fail. My journey into becoming the family chef began innocently enough. During college, I discovered a passion for cooking through that elective course. It started with simple recipes, then evolved into additional weekend workshops at a local culinary school. There was something deeply satisfying about creating something that brought people together, about mastering techniques that transformed basic ingredients into something spectacular. The first time I cooked a Thanksgiving dinner was when I was 23. Mom had come down with the flu, and Grandma Evelyn was visiting her sister in Florida. Dad suggested ordering from a restaurant, but I volunteered to cook instead. I spent days researching recipes, prepping ingredients, and timing everything perfectly. When the family gathered around the table, their reactions were nothing short of magical. Dad actually put down his newspaper and said it was the best turkey he'd ever tasted. Jane, who was usually too cool to compliment anyone, asked for my cranberry sauce recipe. Even Patrick, then a picky 15-year-old, cleaned his plate. The pride I felt was indescribable. For once, I was not just the responsible oldest sister, but someone who had created something worthy of praise. Mom recovered enough to join us at the table and hugged me tightly, whispering that I had saved Thanksgiving. That moment, that feeling of being truly valued, was intoxicating. At the time, I was dating Evan, a journalism major with ambitions to travel the world. He helped me that first Thanksgiving, chopping vegetables and washing dishes while I cooked. But even then, he noticed something I was too blind to see. "They really took to your cooking," he said, as we washed dishes after everyone had gone to the living room to watch football. "They loved it," I said, still riding high on their praise. "Just be careful. You don't want to become the designated holiday chef forever." I laughed it off. I enjoyed cooking, and honestly, it felt good to contribute something special. Evan just gave me a look I could not decipher. Then he said, "Just make sure they appreciate what goes into it. All of it, not just the food on their plates." If only I had listened more carefully, if only I had recognized the warning in his words, but I was 23, eager to please and desperate for my family's approval. That Thanksgiving set a precedent that would define my relationship with my family for the next 15 years. Little did I know that my willingness to cook one meal would evolve into an unspoken expectation, consuming countless weekends, holidays, and personal days. Little did I know that my family would come to see me not as a daughter or sister who cooked, but as the cook who happened to be related to them. Looking back now, I can see the path that led me here so clearly. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. At the time, all I saw was the opportunity to be valuable, to be necessary, to be irreplaceable. I just didn't realize the cost. What started as a one-time Thanksgiving rescue mission quickly evolved into a regular role. The following Christmas, Mom casually mentioned that since my turkey had been such a hit, perhaps I would like to handle the holiday meal again. I agreed enthusiastically, spending weeks planning the perfect menu. By the next year, it was simply assumed that I would cook for every major holiday. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, barbecues, and even family birthdays. All became my responsibility. No one ever asked if I wanted to continue this tradition. It just became expected. During those first 5 years, the transformation was subtle but complete. I gradually took over not just the cooking, but all the associated tasks. Creating the menu, shopping for ingredients, setting the table with seasonal decorations, and of course, the mountains of cleanup afterwards, all while my family enjoyed themselves, took photos together, and created memories that didn't include me. Evan, who had initially supported my culinary adventures, began to grow frustrated with how much time I devoted to family meals. "We haven't had a Christmas morning together in 3 years," he pointed out, one December as I prepared to leave our apartment at 5 a.m. to start cooking at my parents' house. "My family is counting on me," I explained, packing my special roasting pan and homemade bread dough that had been rising overnight. "But what about us? What about the life we're trying to build here?" he asked, gesturing to our small but cozy apartment. "I feel like your family gets the best of you, and I get whatever energy is left over." The argument escalated, with Evan finally saying words that stung, but contained a truth I was not ready to hear. "They don't value you, Alisa. They value what you do for them. There's a difference." 3 months later, Evan and I broke up. He had received a job offer overseas, and when he asked me to consider going with him, I couldn't imagine leaving my family without their holiday chef. Looking back, I realized that decision marked a turning point. I chose a role over a relationship. I chose obligation over opportunity. As the years progressed, my efforts became increasingly elaborate. For Thanksgiving, I would test new recipes weeks in advance. For Christmas, I spent days baking cookies and cakes from scratch. Each Easter brought hand-decorated eggs and homemade hot cross buns. I would stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. prepping, then be up at dawn to continue cooking. The financial burden fell entirely on me. While my family contributed some money toward ingredients, they never covered the full cost of the premium items I purchased to make each meal special. Organic free-range turkey, aged cheeses, out-of-season fruits for my signature tarts, and specialized equipment I invested in over the years. The stand mixer, the food processor, the set of German knives that cost nearly $1,000. My family's reaction to all this effort remained frustratingly consistent. They would compliment the food, certainly. Dad would pat his stomach and declare it another triumph. Mom would tell her friends how talented her daughter was. Jane would take photos of the table setting for her social media. Patrick would pile his plate high and ask for leftovers to take home. But not once did anyone offer substantive help. They might ask if they could do anything 15 minutes before guests arrived when everything was essentially complete, but no one ever volunteered to shop, prep, or handle cleanup without being specifically directed. I'd tried dropping hints about needing help. "This turkey is so heavy, I almost threw out my back carrying it," I would say. Or, "I have been on my feet for 12 hours straight." The responses were always the same: sympathetic noises, followed by absolutely no action. It was my friend Sophia who first pointed out how unhealthy the situation had become. She came over the day after one Thanksgiving, finding me exhausted on my couch, still recovering from cooking for 18 people. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, taking in my disheveled appearance. "Thanks," I mumbled, too tired to even feign offense. No, I mean it. This is not normal, Elisa. You spent 3 days cooking for people who couldn't even be bothered to clean up afterwards. Who does that? It's just how my family is, I tried to explain. No, it's how they are with you because you allow it. Have you ever wondered why you keep doing this to yourself? I didn't have an answer then, but her question planted a seed, one that would take years to fully bloom. Why did I keep doing this? Was it love, obligation, a desperate need for approval, or had I simply fallen into a pattern too difficult to break? As years passed, my career began taking off. After working my way up from junior designer to project manager at a respected design agency, I found myself juggling increasingly demanding professional responsibilities. Alongside my self-imposed family obligations, clients expected immediate responses to emails and deadlines loomed constantly. My team looked to me for guidance and solutions. Between
The whole one-woman catering service thing? He asked, drawing a serving platter. For every family event, I admitted. And you enjoy it? The question caught me off guard. Did I enjoy it anymore? The cooking itself? Yes. The appreciation of good food? Absolutely. But the exhaustion, the invisibility, the taken for granted nature of it all, did I enjoy that? I realized I had never really asked myself that question. I used to, I finally said, but now I'm not so sure. Robert nodded thoughtfully. My mom was like you. Did everything for everyone until she had a breakdown at my dad's 50th birthday party. Just started crying while cutting the cake. That was when our family realized we needed to redistribute the emotional labor. Emotional labor, I repeated, testing the phrase. All the invisible work that goes into making people feel cared for, he explained. The remembering, the planning, the anticipating of needs. Women tend to do most of it, and men tend not to notice. He grinned sheepishly. I was as guilty as anyone until Mom's meltdown changed my perspective completely. We exchanged numbers before he left, and for the first time in years, I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with what I could provide or produce. The following months brought 3 major family events that further crystallized my growing dissatisfaction: Mom's 60th birthday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. For each, the pattern repeated with increasing intensity. More elaborate requests from family members, more last-minute changes to accommodate everyone else's preferences, more exhaustion, and less acknowledgement. For Mom's birthday, I created a 5-course meal for 20 people, including her bridge club friends and distant relatives I barely knew. I spent 2 months planning and testing recipes. The week before, I took 3 days off work to prep and bake. During the party, I missed the toast to my mother because I was in the kitchen plating desserts. When someone finally brought me a slice of the cake I had made, the party was winding down and Mom was opening presents. I sat alone at the cleared dining table, eating cake that had grown warm, watching my mother exclaim over gifts that others had simply purchased while I had given weeks of my life. Thanksgiving was worse. I had a major project due the following Monday, meaning I had to cook while also managing remote check-ins with my team. When the turkey took longer than expected, Patrick complained loudly about being hungry. Jane made pointed comments about the cranberry sauce being different this year, her tone making it clear this was not a compliment. Dad fell asleep immediately after eating, and Mom spent most of the meal discussing Jane's upcoming wedding plans. As Christmas approached, I found myself dreading rather than anticipating the holiday. The joy I had once found in creating special meals had been buried under years of unrecognized effort. I was tired, bone deep, soul deep, achingly tired. Robert and I had been dating steadily since the engagement party. He noticed my increasing anxiety as Christmas approached. You know, you could say no, he suggested one evening as I frantically made lists of ingredients I would need. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't understand my family. Saying no is not an option. It is always an option, he said quietly. It just doesn't feel like one because you've never exercised it. His words stayed with me, planting another seed alongside the one Sophia had sown years earlier. Could I say no? What would happen if I did? Would my family finally see me instead of just the meals I produced? Or would they simply find someone else to fulfill the role?
making me not just invisible, but irrelevant. As I moved through the motions of planning another elaborate holiday meal, I began to wonder who I was beyond this role I had created. Was I still the person who had found such joy in that first successful Thanksgiving? Or had I become someone else entirely? Someone whose worth was measured in perfectly roasted turkeys and intricately decorated cookies, whose place in the family was in the kitchen, not at the table. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a holiday where I was not exhausted, where I sat at the table for the entire meal, appeared in family photos, and was a daughter and sister first, not the family chef. The image was so foreign, so impossibly distant, that it brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Last year's Thanksgiving became the breaking point, though I did not recognize it as such when the day began. I woke up with a fever and a hacking cough, symptoms of the flu that had been making its way through my office. Under any reasonable circumstances, I would have called and canceled. Anyone else would have been told to rest and recover. But I was not anyone else. I was the holiday chef, and holidays did not get canceled because of illness. So I downed cold medicine, packed my supplies, and drove to my parents' house, arriving at 7 a.m. with a fever of 101. "You don't look well, dear," Mom said when she saw me, her brow furrowed in what appeared to be concern. "I'm fine," I lied, unpacking groceries, just a little under the weather. "Well, try not to cough near the food," she advised, before leaving me alone in the kitchen. For the next 8 hours, I cooked through waves of dizziness and chills. No one offered to help, even as I visibly struggled. Dad poked his head in once to ask when dinner would be ready. Jane arrived with Kyle and immediately monopolized Mom's attention with wedding details. Patrick showed up an hour late, contributing nothing but complaints about traffic. Grandma Evelyn arrived last, surveying the kitchen with her critical eye before announcing, "It smells different this year, not as good." By the time we sat down to eat, my fever had risen, and I could barely taste the food I had spent all day preparing. I picked up my plate, too sick to enjoy the meal. No one seemed to notice. The moment that truly opened my eyes came after dinner. While the family retired to the living room for coffee and pie, I began the hours-long task of cleaning up. As I loaded the dishwasher, I noticed a photo album on the side counter opened pictures from last Christmas. Curious, I began flipping through it, page after page of holiday celebrations, spanning the past 15 years. Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, Easter brunches. My family smiling around tables laden with food I had prepared, opening gifts I had carefully selected, creating memories year after year. What struck me with the force of physical pain was my absence from these images. 15 years of holidays, and I appeared in perhaps 5 photos. Always on the periphery, often partially cut off, frequently caught in unflattering moments of work. Transferring a turkey to a platter, bringing out dessert, clearing dishes. I was a ghost in my family's holiday history, present enough to create the perfect backdrop for their memories, but not present enough to actually be part of them. With shaking hands, I carried the album to the living room where my family was laughing over something Patrick had said. "Mom?" I said, my voice strange to my own ears. "I was looking through this album. Do you realize there are almost no pictures of me from any holiday over the past 15 years? The conversation paused. Mom looked confused rather than concerned. "Well, you're always busy in the kitchen, dear," she said, as if this explained everything. "Too busy to be included in family photos? Too busy to be part of the memories? You're doing what you love. You always take such pride in your cooking." Before I could respond, Patrick chimed in with what he clearly thought was a helpful observation. "Chillax, sis. Everyone has a role in the family. Jane is the pretty one, I am the funny one, and you're the one who feeds us. That's your thing." The casual cruelty of his statement hit me like a slap. Is that all I was to them? The one who feeds them? 15 years of dedicating my holidays, spending thousands of dollars, sacrificing my personal time, relationships, and well-being, all amounted to being reduced to a function rather than a person.
I looked around at their faces. Mom's confusion, Dad's discomfort, Jane's impatience, Patrick's obliviousness, Grandma's disapproval, and something inside me finally broke. Or perhaps something was finally fixed. The illusion that had kept me trapped in this role shattered completely. I closed the photo album and placed it on the coffee table. "I am going home," I said quietly. "I do not feel well." "But we haven't had dessert," Mom protested. "You made your special pumpkin cheesecake." "Serve it without me," I said, gathering my coat. "I am sure you can manage to cut a cheesecake without my help." The drive home was a blur of tears and revelation. When I arrived, I called Sophia, who came over immediately with medicine, tissues, and a sympathetic ear. I showed her pictures from the album on my phone, photos I had taken of the physical evidence of my erasure. "Oh, Elisa," she said softly, "how did you not see this before?" "I did not want to," I admitted. "I thought if I just did more, cooked better, tried harder, eventually they would see me, really see me." Later that night, Robert called to check how dinner had gone. Instead of the usual polite summary, I broke down, telling him everything: the fever, the photos, the painful realization that had been 15 years in the making. "I'm coming over," he said immediately. When he arrived, he held me while I cried, then made me tea and toast. Simple acts of care that somehow meant more than any elaborate meal I had ever created. "You know, this cannot continue," he said gently. And for the first time, I knew with absolute certainty that he was right. Whatever happened next, I could not go back to being the invisible chef, even if that meant upending 15 years of family tradition, even if it meant risking my place in the family altogether. "No," I agreed, my voice stronger than I expected. "It cannot."
You know, Mom cannot cook a Thanksgiving dinner, and I certainly do not have time with all the wedding planning. Are you trying to ruin the holiday for everyone? Jane demanded. "I am trying to actually be present for the holiday for once," I explained. "But you are always present. You are literally in the house all day," she countered. "Being in the house is not the same as being part of the family, Jane. When was the last time I was in a holiday photo? When was the last time anyone helped me in the kitchen or even asked if I wanted to cook? When was the last time anyone thanked me, not just for the food, but for the weeks of planning that went into it? So this is about getting more compliments. Just say that instead of holding Thanksgiving hostage," she sneered. I sighed, realizing she truly did not understand. It is not about compliments, Jane. It is about being valued as a person, not just as a service provider. Patrick's response, perhaps the most telling, came next. He called and immediately offered what he thought was a solution. "Look, if this is about money, I can chip in more this year. Would $500 make it better? $1,000? Just name your price." "This is not about money, Patrick," I said, the frustration clear in my voice. "Though the fact that you think my time and effort can simply be purchased says a lot." Grandma Evelyn did not call or text directly. Instead, she relayed a message through Mom. "Your grandmother says she has never been so disappointed in you. She raised her children to respect family traditions." The pressure continued to mount over the following days. Mom organized a family conference call that felt more like an intervention, with everyone taking turns trying to persuade me to reconsider. "The timing is just so inconsiderate," Mom lamented. "We have always counted on you for this." "That is exactly the problem," I replied. "You have counted on me without counting me in." Jane tried a different approach. "Is this about Robert? Is he the one putting these ideas in your head? Because interfering with family traditions is not a good look for a new boyfriend." "This has nothing to do with Robert and everything to do with 15 years of being invisible at my own family gatherings," I said. Patrick, ever practical, made one final attempt. "What if we hired kitchen help? You could supervise and still join us for the meal." "The point is not finding a workaround so I can still do most of the work," I explained, my patience wearing thin. "The point is recognizing that I have feelings and needs beyond fulfilling this role you have assigned me." In the end, my family's reactions only confirmed what I had begun to suspect. They valued the service I provided more than they valued my happiness or well-being. This painful realization strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Mom called, offering what she clearly thought was an olive branch. "We have decided to order a pre-cooked turkey from the grocery store," she said, her tone suggesting I should be grateful for this concession. "But we will still need you to come early to heat everything properly and make the gravy. The store does not provide gravy." "Mom, I am not coming early and I am not making gravy. I will arrive at the same time as everyone else, as a guest." "I do not understand why you are being so difficult about this," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "I know you do not understand," I replied sadly, "and that is exactly the problem." Thanksgiving Day arrived, and for the first time in 15 years, I slept in. No pre-dawn alarm to begin cooking, no last-minute grocery runs, no hours of chopping, roasting, and basting. I took my time getting dressed, brought a simple bottle of wine as my contribution, and arrived at my parents' house at the designated dinner time. The scene that greeted me was one of barely controlled chaos. The pre-ordered turkey sat on the counter, still in the packaging. Mom fluttered around the kitchen, opening and closing cabinets, clearly searching for utensils and serving dishes I had always provided. Dad attempted to make gravy from a packet, resulting in a lumpy, pale concoction. Jane and Kyle stood awkwardly to the side, both staring at their phones rather than offering help. Patrick was nowhere to be seen. "Oh, thank goodness," Mom said when she saw me. "We're having a bit of a situation with the turkey. The package says it's fully cooked, but it's cold in the middle, and we're not sure how long to heat it." For a moment, I felt the familiar pull of responsibility, the urge to step in and fix everything, but I resisted. "The package should have heating instructions," I said, keeping my coat on. "Where is Patrick?" "He went to pick up Grandma," Dad answered, still stirring his failed gravy. "She refused to come when she heard you wouldn't be cooking." I nodded, unsurprised. "Is there anything I can help with as a guest? Set the table, perhaps?" The pointed emphasis on "as a guest" was not lost on Mom, who pressed her lips together before nodding toward the dining room. Dinner was, to put it kindly, a modest success. The turkey was slightly dry, the store-bought sides were bland, and the lumpy gravy went largely untouched. But for the first time in 15 years, I sat through an entire holiday meal. I participated in conversations. I was present for the awkward but sincere toast Dad gave. I even appeared in the family photo that Jane insisted on taking despite everything. As I helped with basic cleanup afterward, a courtesy any guest would under, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Guilt at seeing my family struggle, satisfaction at finally setting a boundary, sadness for all the years lost, and hope that perhaps this difficult lesson might eventually lead to positive change. When I left that night, Mom hugged me a little longer than usual. "It was different without your cooking," she admitted. "It was different for me, too," I replied. "But it was nice to actually be at Thanksgiving for once, rather than just providing it." She pulled back, steadying my face with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Will you be cooking for Christmas at least? Your father really looks forward to your ham." And just like that, I knew that one Thanksgiving was not enough to change 15 years of ingrained patterns. The family conference call, the disappointed messages, the awkward dinner, none of it had truly penetrated the fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of our relationship. "No, Mom," I said, gently but firmly, "I will not be cooking for Christmas either." What I did not tell her then, what I had not told any of them yet, was that I wouldn't even be attending Christmas this year. For the first time in my adult life, I had made different plans. Plans that prioritized my happiness rather than my utility. Plans that would show my family exactly what the holidays looked like without their taken-for-granted chef. Plans that involved a beach, a good book, and absolutely no cooking whatsoever. In the weeks following Thanksgiving, an uneasy truce settled over my family. No one directly mentioned my refusal to cook, but the undercurrent of tension was impossible to ignore. Mom called less frequently. Dad sent his usual terse text messages about practical matters. Jane was consumed with wedding planning, which provided a convenient excuse to avoid deeper conversations. Patrick, surprisingly, was the only one who reached out in a meaningful way. "Thanksgiving was eye-opening," he texted one evening. "Never realized how much work goes into these meals." Sorry for taking it for granted. It's a small acknowledgement, but I appreciated the effort, I replied. Thank you for noticing. That means a lot. As Christmas grew closer, I could sense my family's growing anxiety. They seemed to be waiting for me to announce that my rebellion, as Jane had termed it, was over, that I would resume my proper place in the kitchen, allowing holiday traditions to return to normal. Instead, I made a different announcement during our next family video call. I want to let you all know that I will not be attending Christmas this year, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral despite my racing heart. I have made other plans. The stunned silence that followed was broken by Mom. What other plans could possibly be more important than Christmas with your family? I'm going to Mexico, I said simply. A beach vacation. I've already booked the flight and resort for Christmas. Dad sounded genuinely confused, as if I had announced I was spending the holiday on Mars. This is ridiculous, Jane interjected. First you refused to cook Thanksgiving, and now you're skipping Christmas entirely? When did you become so selfish? This has nothing to do with Robert and everything to do with 15 years of being invisible at my own family gatherings, I said. Patrick, ever practical, made one final attempt. What if we hired kitchen help? You could supervise and still join us for the meal. The point is not finding a workaround so I can still do most of the work, I explained, my patience wearing thin. The point is recognizing that I have feelings and needs beyond fulfilling this role you have assigned me. In the end, my family's reactions only confirmed what I had begun to suspect. They valued the service I provided more than they valued my happiness or well-being. This painful realization strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Mom called, offering what she clearly thought was an olive branch. We have decided to order a pre-cooked turkey from the grocery store, she said, her tone suggesting I should be grateful for this concession. But we will still need you to come early to heat everything properly and make the gravy. The store does not provide gravy. Mom, I am not coming early, and I am not making gravy. I will arrive at the same time as everyone else as a guest. I do not understand why you are being so difficult about this, she said, frustration evident in her voice. I know you do not understand, I replied, sadly. And that is exactly the problem. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and for the first time in 15 years, I slept in. No pre-dawn alarm to begin cooking. No last-minute grocery runs. No hours of chopping, roasting, and basting. I took my time getting dressed, brought a simple bottle of wine as my contribution, and arrived at my parents' house at the designated dinner time. The scene that greeted me was one of barely controlled chaos. The pre-ordered turkey sat on the counter, still in the packaging. Mom fluttered around the kitchen, opening and closing cabinets, clearly searching for utensils and serving dishes. Jane was drinking wine directly from the bottle, and Patrick was trying to convince everyone that ordering pizza was a perfectly acceptable Christmas dinner. Despite myself, I laughed. Are they really that helpless without me? I asked. Completely, Sophia confirmed. Your grandmother is sitting in the corner, periodically sighing and saying things like, "In my day, daughters did not abandon their families for beach vacations." It is both sad and hilarious. Do you think I made a mistake? I asked, suddenly uncertain. Not at all, Sophia said firmly. They needed to see what goes into these meals that you have been silently providing for years, though I'm a little concerned they might all get food poisoning from that undercooked turkey. After we hung up, I sent a group text with basic instructions for safely cooking the turkey, making simple gravy, and rescuing lumpy mashed potatoes. I added, "Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope today brings you joy and perspective." Then I turned my phone off again and rejoined Robert, who was now awake and waiting for me on the beach with fresh fruit and pastries. Family crisis? He asked, noting my mixed expression. Family reality check, I corrected, accepting the plate he offered. Apparently, Christmas dinner is in shambles without their chef. He nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes people need to experience the absence of something to truly value its presence. That sounds suspiciously like a greeting card, I teased. Guilty as charged, he admitted with a smile. But that does not make it less true. The rest of our vacation was everything I had hoped for and more. We swam in crystal clear water, explored local markets, ate delicious food prepared by others, and slept late every morning. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced a holiday that left me refreshed rather than depleted. More importantly, I reconnected with parts of myself that had been overshadowed by my role as family chef. I rediscovered my love of reading, devouring 3 novels in a week. I sketched the beautiful scenery, tapping into artistic talents I had neglected. I had conversations that did not revolve around menu planning or ingredient substitutions. On our last night in Mexico, Robert and I walked along the beach at sunset. The sky blazed with colors so vivid they seemed almost artificial, like something from a dream rather than reality. "I have been thinking," Robert said, stopping to face me. "This week has been wonderful, but it has also made me sad." "Sad? Why?" I asked, concerned. "Because I have seen a different version of you here. Relaxed, playful, fully present. It makes me realize how much of yourself you have been hiding behind that chef persona, parts your family has never bothered to see." His observation struck me with unexpected force. He was right. The Elisa on this beach was different from the Elisa who spent holidays trapped in the kitchen. She laughed more easily, spoke more confidently, took up more space in the world. "I like this version of you," Robert continued, taking my hands in his, "and I want to help make sure she does not disappear when we go home." As I looked into his eyes, I knew with sudden clarity that whatever happened with my family when I returned, I could not and would not revert to the invisible chef. That version of me had served her time. It was time for the real Elisa to take her place at the table, whether my family was ready for her or not. Returning home after the Mexico trip felt like stepping into a different dimension. My apartment seemed smaller, my routine constricting after the freedom of the beach, but something fundamental had shifted within me. I carried the peace of that vacation like an internal compass, guiding me toward a more authentic way of being. My family, unsurprisingly, had their own perspectives on what they termed my Christmas abandonment. I had barely unpacked before Mom called, asking if we could meet for coffee. Her tone was different, less demanding, more tentative, and my curiosity overcame my reluctance. We met at a quiet cafe near my apartment. Mom looked tired, the kind of bone-deep weariness I recognized all too well from my years as the holiday chef. "You look good," she said after we exchanged awkward greetings. "Rested," I admitted. The vacation was exactly what I needed. She nodded, turning her coffee cup in small circles. "Christmas was a disaster," she said bluntly. "The turkey was undercooked, the sides were bland, your grandmother complained through the entire meal." I waited, expecting blame, bracing for the guilt trip that would inevitably follow. Instead, Mom surprised me. "I never realized how much work you put into those meals," she continued. "How many hours, how much planning, how much care. We tried to follow recipes, but nothing turned out right. By the end of the day, I was exhausted just from that one meal. And you did it for every holiday for 15 years. The acknowledgement, so long awaited, nearly brought tears to my eyes. "Yes," I said, simply. "I did." "I am sorry, Elisa," she said, meeting my gaze directly. "We took you for granted. I took you for granted, and I never stopped to consider how it felt for you being stuck in the kitchen while we enjoyed the holidays." Her apology was imperfect. There was still a note of self-pity in her voice, a hint of, "Look how much we suffered without you." But it was genuine, and it was more reflection than I had seen from her in years. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot to hear it." "Your father wants to apologize too. He feels terrible about never helping with the meals. He just didn't know how." "Not knowing how is not an excuse for never learning," I pointed out, unwilling to let them entirely off the hook. "You're right," Mom agreed, surprising me again. "And that's why he has signed up for a basic cooking class at the community center. He says it's time he learned to make more than toast and cereal." The image of my father, with his perpetual newspaper and resistance to change, attending a cooking class, was so unexpected that I laughed out loud. I would pay good money to see that, I said. Mom smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. He's terrible so far. Last week, he tried to make spaghetti and somehow burned the noodles. But he's trying, which is more than I can say for any of us before. 2 days later, I received an email from Dad. Never one for phone calls or in-person emotional conversations. He had chosen the communication method most comfortable for him. Elisa, I owe you an apology. For years, I enjoyed the meals you prepared without considering the work involved or offering to help. Your absence at Christmas showed me how much I have taken you for granted. I am sorry. I am learning to cook now, badly, as your mother has probably told you. It's harder than it looks. Thank you for all you have done. Love, Dad. Short, direct, and genuine. Exactly like my father himself. I wrote back a simple, "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot to me." Jane was slower to come around. Her initial messages after my return were still tinged with resentment, framing my decisions as attacks on family tradition rather than necessary boundaries. But even she eventually reached out with an olive branch, inviting me to coffee to clear the air. "I still think you could have picked a different time to make your point than Christmas," she said. "Never want to fully concede. But I get it now. We relied on you too much and noticed you too little." Patrick, to my surprise, became my biggest ally in the family's transformation. Having witnessed the Christmas dinner disaster firsthand, he developed a newfound appreciation for the work I had silently performed for years. "It was a real eye-opener," he told me over lunch one day. "Mom had a complete meltdown trying to figure out how to time all the different dishes. Dad sliced his finger trying to cut vegetables. And I realized I didn't even know where the measuring cups were kept in our parents' house after all these years. We were like helpless children without you." Grandma Evelyn was the final and most difficult family member to address the situation. Our first post-Christmas interaction came at a family dinner in January where everyone contributed a dish rather than placing the entire burden on one person. "You went to Mexico for Christmas," she said, cornering me in the hallway. "I did," I confirmed, refusing to apologize. She studied me with shrewd eyes that had seen over 80 decades of family dynamics. "Your mother was devastated." "I know. The dinner was inedible." "So I heard," she replied. We stared at each other for a long moment before her expression softened slightly. "In my day, women did what was expected of them without complaint. We put family first, always." "And were you happy, Grandma?" I asked gently. The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Happy? That wasn't the point. The point was duty. I think it is possible to have both." I suggested serving family out of love rather than obligation, and being appreciated rather than expected. She considered this, her lined face thoughtful. "Perhaps you are right. My grandfather always thanked me for my cooking, every meal, for 52 years. He never took it for granted." It was a small revelation, but a meaningful one. Even in my grandmother's generation of duty first, there had been acknowledgement and gratitude, something my family had forgotten to practice. The next major family gathering was for Dad's birthday in February. For the first time in over a decade, I attended as simply a guest, not the designated chef. Mom had asked if I would help her plan the menu, not take over the